to Fish on Fridays. I'm Al McCauley, and today I want to talk to you about one of the most beloved saints of the last 150 years or so. And I'm talking about a guy named St. John Bosco. He's going to die in 1888, but we celebrate his feast every year on January 31st. And he was just a remarkable man and ahead of his time in a lot of ways. And so I want to talk about him today. He was born in Turin, Italy, and his dad is going to die when he's 2 years old. And that's going to leave something inside of him. It's going to leave a great empathy for orphans, for other people, other children in particular, who are orphaned, who are poor. It's going to give him great empathy and compassion for those people. And eventually it's going to point to his life's work as a priest. He will become ordained as a priest. And he loved teaching young people, especially boys who were, again, orphaned and poor. I think he saw a little bit of himself in them, and so this made him want to help them, to give them maybe somebody to look up to, a father figure that he did not have. So he was one of these guys who worked, the Industrial Revolution is in full swing here, and so he worked among the kids who were children of people working in factories. He worked in the city, inside the city, so this is not a rural setting, but an urban setting. And some of the students he taught were the children of stonecutters and masons. They built buildings and worked with plaster and all that kind of stuff, and what we would call today maybe blue collar workers. But he saw that a lot of these kids grouped together sometimes would get into trouble. And so what he did was he tried to set up schools where he could teach them where their parents, where their dads, where they worked, so that he could have access to them. They wouldn't have to travel great distances. And he insisted, as part of the training that he gave these kids, he insisted that they learn some kind of trade, that they learn to work with their hands, so that they can be productive members of society, but also to provide for their families and for themselves, and to give them a sense of self-esteem, a sense of worth, that there's dignity in the work that they do. We talk about the Catholic social teachings today and the dignity of work. And this is something that, again, he was ahead of his time. John Bosco knew the importance of that and what the idea of a good, honest day's work would do for these young men in terms of building them up. So, but one of the things that kind of got him in hot water was he had some rather unorthodox styles of teaching. He would do whatever he could to reach these kids, and so he used these unconventional ways. He knew how to juggle, and he was an actor and a thespian, and so he was kind of goofy at ways. He would juggle, and he would use magic tricks and acrobatics. He would do all kinds of stuff. Basically, he would be playful, and he would make learning fun for these young men and for the women that he taught. He would try to make them see that not all of life has to be dour and sad-faced. It could be fun. And so he did this. In fact, some of the priests who were teachers did not like his style. They didn't like his tactics, and some of them tried to actually commit him to an insane asylum because they thought he was that wacky, that out of his league in terms of how you should teach and how you should approach young men's education. So, but he's going to escape that. He's not going to go to the asylum, and he's going to go on. And as life goes on, he's going to start a religious order called the Salesians. They're named after St. Francis de Sales, who was a great thinker in his own right, doctor of the church and whatnot. And he wants the Salesians to carry on the legacy he started of educating, especially educating with a spiritual dimension. That was very important to John Bosco, that everything that we learn has a spiritual dimension. English, math, well, in his case, it would have been Italian or Latin perhaps, but science, doesn't matter. Everything has, if it's seen through the lens of our faith, that's really what he wanted, that spiritual dimension in education. To help further that cause, he wrote and published several books that were catechists that were easily accessible for the young people he worked with. So he was a real powerhouse, just a fun guy and a playful guy, but a seriously dedicated guy to his faith. And so John Bosco leaves a great legacy. Among other things, one thing his legacy includes is another saint named Saint Dominic Savio. Dominic Savio was kind of like a spiritual prodigy and was a pupil of his. And unfortunately, Dominic's going to die when he's 15 years old, but of a disease. But he's going to leave his own legacy of being heroic and virtuous, even as a young child that might be facing peer pressure and whatnot. But he was somebody that was that really took a shining to John Bosco's teachings and lived it out. The idea of work and temperance was so important to John Bosco. That was another legacy of his. Is, do we take our work seriously? Are we temperate in terms of the things that we have fun with? He did say it's good to play. He would say, one of the quotes attributed to him is, "Run, shout, jump, play, but do not sin." So having fun is one thing, but it shouldn't lead you to sin. And that's another part of his legacy is Christians too often are, it's good that we're serious. It's really good that we're serious in our faith, but it's important also to know that we should laugh and we should be joyful people, because ultimately we're Easter people. Christ is risen. And so we should be singing our Alleluias and have fun in a good hearted way that way. So John Bosco leaves a lot in terms of his legacy that way. The last thing I would say about John Bosco is something he tried to instill in his students, and it comes down to us today, still 100 century and a half later, is this quote that's attributed to him, and I just love it because I think it's something that we all could use a little bit of in our own lives. I know me in particular, I think about this, saying, "Do not try to excuse your faults," he said. Try to correct them. Don't try to excuse your faults, try to correct them. And I think that's really at the heart of the Christian message, is that we are people who are broken, but we have faith in the risen Christ. And when we excuse ourselves as if we didn't sin, that's kind of a problem. We need to always try to better ourselves, improve ourselves, as John Bosco tried to teach his pupils back in the 19th century. So there you go. John Bosco, great saint to know. We'd love it if you would felt like you'd want to share this content with anybody who may be interested. It would be great if you'd subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love it if you'd follow us on Facebook. But either way, thanks for tuning in every Friday for Fish on Fridays. Until next time, please be good to each other, and God bless.